home I live in. This is my home on Pine Lake. And when you buy a home like that, my name's Paul Wilbur. I'm an automotive executive, 40 years in automotive, a little bit at Ford, mostly Chrysler, and heaven forbid the last few years at all over the place. But when you start restoring a home, you learn a lot about the city. You learn a lot about the township. You learn about the first owners. You learn about a lot of things. And so what I have done is compiled a lot of this information. You can call me a nerd, okay, I'm a nerd. But I get into this and I realized I probably have enough for 3 or 4 hours of presentation, but I'm not going to do that to you. I have 2 really bad slides in this deck and almost everything else is pictures. So bear with me early on through the 2 ugly slides and the rest will be pretty smooth sailing. I would first like to thank Gina and the Greater West Bloomfield Historic Society for inviting me here to speak. And there's a young man at the very back of the room named John Marshall who happens to have provided a lot of information to me. He's one of the historians for the Bloomfield Hills, Bloomfield Township area. And so John, thank you also for a lot of your help. Digging through, looking for materials, pretty difficult sometimes. So here's my story. Once upon a time, this young boy from Kansas gets hired by Ford Motor Company, and I have this crazy dream that someday I'd like to live in an auto baron's house. And we all know the Henry Ford, we know Edsel Ford's home, we know Meadowbrook Hall, and I had this crazy dream, I want to live in one of those too. In order to understand that, you have to go back 100 years. So this home was built in 1925, but I'm going to take you back a few hundred more years, very briefly on some really ugly slides. It'll make sense later, I promise. It'll make sense later when I pull it back together. So here's first ugly slide. This is the history of Michigan. So we sign a Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris basically gives the U.S. government the rights over Michigan. We're now a U.S. territory. That's 1783. In 1807, even though we're a U.S. territory, we actually don't have rights to the land of southeast Michigan. There are 4 Native American tribes that really have laid claim to it. They're the Potawatomi, the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and the Wyandot tribes. What makes that interesting is that the U.S. government cut a deal with them. And they said, there's about 8 million acres that we'd like to have you cede, which means back away from, don't claim rights. And we're willing to pay 1.2 cents per acre. What do you think? Pretty good deal, huh? $96,000 and you buy 8 million acres of what we now call Southeast Michigan. That's documented in the Treaty of Detroit. By 1815, what do you think we're doing as an American government with this territory that we now have rights to? Well, guess what? If you're a civil engineer, you got a great job because they're going to go out and they're going to look at everything and they're going to see where all the ownership areas are. And what are they doing? By 1820, they're going to sell the land. And who are they selling it to? Well, all the people in the east that need to go west. They're advertising heavily in New York, Pennsylvania. Come to Michigan, there's all this property. We'll sell it to you in 40, 60, 80, 120 acre increments. The land is fertile, it's beautiful, come to Michigan, right? So by 1828, I know I'm way back in time, but 1828, believe it or not, there's a first commercial railroad is built. And it's from downtown Detroit all the way out to Royal Oak. See, in those days, there wasn't anything beyond Royal Oak in 1828. And when they talked to the railroad people, they said, everything beyond that's just swampy. That's a swampy mess. So where we live today and where we're standing today, it's a swampy mess. Now, West Bloomfield, as we get a little closer to home, is actually chartered in 1833. Michigan becomes a state in 1837. So we're barely a state. Anybody want to guess what the population of Detroit is in 1820? It's 1,422 people. So we're all the way back to the beginning of time, right? In 1840, and John Marshall taught me this, if you try to find any title work on your property prior to 1840, you can pretty much forget it. It's on handwritten paper. There's different sections and pieces of information, but if you go to someone like a titling group or you try to find legal documents, really hard to find. Well, 1840 starts to become a turning point. Now everybody's buying property in Michigan, and by 1842, the commercial railway makes it all the way to Pontiac. We say, why is that important? Well, the railways are everything. Imagine you're a farmer and you need to bring your grain down to Eastern Market to sell to the population of Detroit, which is down there. How do you get it down there? Well, you got horses, you got wagons, but boy, if you got a railroad, and this is a commercial railroad, that's a huge deal. All of a sudden this makes being a sheep herder or a farmer or a trapper really easy. It makes it possible that you can live out here. So now I'm almost up to 1900. In 1899, something terrific happens for this part of the country. Another railway, this is actually a trolley, an electric trolley system called the Detroit United Railway is created. But this railway, this trolley system carries people. And so what do the people want to do in this era? Well, the city's getting populated, it's hot. To get out of the city, they want to go up north. Do you know where up north is? Right here. It's Sylvan Lake, it's Cass Lake, it's Orchard Lake. Orchard Lake's very popular. Pine Lake is very popular because people want to get out of the hot city. You come out to the country, it's beautiful, there's water, there's a lot of things to do. It's fantastic. In 1899, in a little club called the Detroit Club, which is right in the middle of downtown, still exists today, a bunch of auto people got together and said, hey, you know what? We have horses, we have the early advent of cars, and we have wagons, and we have trolley cars. Now these trolleys will go up to 40, 50 miles per hour. They're fast. There's no rules on the road. You know, if they hit at an intersection, who has the right of way? And by the way, if you ever want to really laugh, go get a book on the early rules of travel in America. You know, you got to stop your car at an intersection, wave a flag, blow a whistle. No, this is all true. There's all sorts of really crazy rules of how you travel. Anyway, in 1899 at the Auto Club, in the Detroit Club, they dream of this idea that somebody ought to be looking out for the safety of all the people that are traveling, and they start what we call today AAA. They're working on safety. By 1900, there's a whopping 8,000 cars in America, 144 miles of paved road. And by the way, the definition of paved does not mean concrete and asphalt. Okay, let's be clear. By the way, of those 8,000 cars, none of them are Fords. Ford Motor Company doesn't exist yet. Ford Motor Company doesn't exist until 1903. And they start making their Model A, not the 32 model. I'm talking about the original Model A. It started being made in 1904. The price of a Model A in 1904 is $870. Do you know what the household income is? It's not $870. So it's more than a year's pay to buy a car. Who owns the cars, these 8,000? They're Packards, they're Duryers, they're Oldsmobiles, but they're more expensive than most people make in a whole year salary or wage. By 1914, and I'm still in Detroit and Detroit history, Henry Ford introduces the $5 wage. The $5 wage is about $1,250 a year for a 60-hour work week, okay? But all of a sudden, that's enough money that people can start to really afford things. It's affluent. We call it the middle class. They can start to buy things. 1915 in Detroit is hot, and people want to go and get out of the city, and we call them the vacationers. And they want to come up to this area because it's so beautiful. It's calm, it's got wildlife, it's got the water. And now it's easy to get up here because we've got trolleys. There's a claim that you can get from downtown Detroit out to Pontiac and then over into Kego Harbor area, Sylvan Lake, 76 minutes. By car, you're talking many hours, 3 to 4. If it's dirty, muddy outside, it can take a lot longer than 3 hours, okay? So now it's 1920. 1920. Detroit is the 4th largest city in America. The 4th largest city in America. And it's booming. It's booming on housing, it's booming early car production, and it's a wonderful time in the city. Okay, that's my ugly slide. Now watch this. I can simplify that whole slide in one slide like this. Boom. First, there's Indians, Native Americans. Then there's the farmers, the estate builders, the early people that had money came out. They built their estates with the vacationers who could get up here by trolley. And then boom, subdivision USA. How's that? I did that slide in 10 seconds. When I say it's muddy,
that's our street.
No, this is Orchard Lake. You want to talk about muddy? By the way, do you know why they're driving right next to the railway? Because if they get stuck, the trolley will pull them out. I am not kidding. He's right next to the train trail. That, by the way, that's a 1903 Oldsmobile. Look at the price of that car. $650 for that thing. Yeah, that's tough, right? Okay, my second ugly slide. Now let's get closer to Pine Lake. Let's get closer to West Bloomfield. Prior to 1870, I just showed you this, right? Prior to 1870, it's mostly farming. It's mostly farming. It could be sheep herding. With the sheep also comes wool. Trapping. Pine Lake's known for its muskrat. How many people here live on Pine Lake? Or close. You see muskrat in your yard? All the time. Yeah. So there was a little article I wrote that said they could trap 40 muskrat in a week. 40 muskrat. Pine Lake's known for muskrats. Okay. So now a little closer to home. 1885, the farmers, the settlers, decided they need to educate their kids, and they can't take them all the way downtown. The first schoolhouse, by the way, you probably pass it every day when you drive. It's called Pine Lake Number 3. It's right at the corner of Long Lake Road and Middle Belt. I mean, it's literally right there. And by the way, they've moved it. It still exists. They've now moved it a little more to the west, but it is still there right at the second. And you can see it. Beautiful little building. That's the original schoolhouse for the area. In 1895, the Interlaken Hotel gets put up. We have a hotel on Pine Lake. If your name's Mike Atchison, you actually live on that property today. Otherwise, it's wonderful. So there's now a hotel. The area is already popular with vacationers. They want to come up. They want to hang out on the lakes. They want to do the rowboats. Shorty's in 1895 is the first marina. It's where the Pine Lake Marina is now, close. It's a little bit over, but it's Shorty's. They rent rowboats. They rent out. Sailboating is a big deal. A lot of people come up to sail. In 1895, there's a group of, anybody in here Episcopalian? Episcopalian? The Girls Friendly Society is now on the east side of Pine Lake. It's a think of a Christian girls summer camp. You can come up for 2 weeks on the church, stay on the Pine Lake area, swim, do all the fun festivities, learn some more about Christianity. It's wonderful. That group still exists today, by the way, but they're no longer on Pine Lake. 1901, here's where our trolley comes in. So now the trolley goes right up Saginaw Trail, Woodward, goes right up Woodward Avenue to Pontiac, turns at Pontiac, goes to Kego Harbor, close to Sylvan Lake.
They have to go through Sylvan Lake to get.
You're funny. But it happens to come all the way where the road is today and right down Orchard Lake Road all the way to Farmington. Then, by the way, it hits another loop and it goes back to Detroit. But to get from Detroit up to Pine Lake in 76 minutes is incredible. Like I said, it's an incredible thing. So it's easy for people to do. What's it cost? $0.25? That's a lot of money in 1901, but that's great. It's great. 1902, the Auto Club of Detroit, remember they were founded downtown, they decide we're going to put our first clubhouse on Pine Lake. I'll show you a little graphic of this in a second. Like I said, these are ugly slides. But what we know is it was a clubhouse. Who are the members? The most notable people in Detroit in the auto industry. And they find it a challenge to drive up to Pine Lake. It's a social club. They get there, they have fun, they socialize, they can stay there, and then on to their own thing. So 1908, in perspective to all of this going on, 1908 is the first year of the Model T. Right? So this is all happening before the Model T. Also in 1908, the first subdivision exists on Pine Lake. It's called Interlaken. As the hotel has been there since 1895, now a subdivision gets created. And it's the first one on Pine Lake. And it's completely developed, platted. All of the properties are sold. And people start building their country homes on Interlaken. 1915, much of the farming and much of the ranching is now gone from the Pine Lake area. The property's been bought up by people that want to build country homes. Summer country homes, this is a popular phrase, a country home versus a Detroit home, all right? And they're absolutely occupied in the summertime. Some people are more daring and live up here longer than just the summer. In 1917, the Auto Club of Detroit says, it's time for us to move on. By the way, there are auto clubs of blank all over the country because everybody has the same problem. They don't know, what happens when a horse and a wagon and a trolley and a car come to the same intersection. So they're trying to figure out the rules of the road everywhere, not just Detroit. But they sell the Auto Club of Detroit property built by George Hodges to Pine Lake to become a private country club. George Hodges also has enough land that they can get 7 holes of golf. 7. So he sells the building that he built for the Auto Club of Detroit, he sells to Pine Lake Country Club, and you got a 7-hole golf course. 1920 starts people like Judson Bradway, and they're trying to make up north a class place to live. I mean, they're really saying this is a time of development. We're in a boom, and things are booming. They're booming in Detroit. They're starting to boom in the auto industry. They're booming in the development of this area. Lots of development. And you should know, and I put this as the final note because I'm a car guy, by 1925, Henry Ford makes 2 million Model Ts every year. But the price has now dropped every year also. And the Model T in 1925 is $260. So all of a sudden, the middle class that could never afford a car in 1903 can absolutely afford a car by 1925. Okay? So a lot of people give a lot of credit to Henry Ford for the development of the middle class, and I think that's valid to some degree. Okay, I'm going to concentrate just on this. I'm in 1900 garb because I'm concentrating on the 1900s. So I just told you about the yellow is where Pine Lake Country Club is. The green, that's where the Interlaken Hotel is. You can also see the Interlaken subdivision is in that. You can see it's already platted. It's already cordoned off, and everybody's starting to build their little homes. As you look around the house, around the lake, excuse me, you can see all of the large farms are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. This is 1908. As I show you a couple more, you'll see they get smaller and smaller. People are buying up the land. Here's the Interlaken Hotel. Have you ever seen it, everybody? Ever seen that? It burned down long before most of us were probably born. Very cool place. Notice the horses. There aren't cars here. There are horses. Auto Club of Detroit. This is the original Auto Club of Detroit. On the left and on the right is the original 7-hole golf course. 7 holes. 7 holes. Also built by George Hodges. George Hodges, on that last lot, he owns a lot of the land up here. He's also educated in Paris. He's an amazing human being. He's got a whole, building homes is not in his educational background. So this is my favorite slide. As you look around Pine Lake, and I'm a Pine Lake person, so I'm kind of focusing on Pine Lake. The purple triangle, that's what is today known as St. Mary's. But prior to being St. Mary's, it was a military academy. That's where our militia were trained and educated and learned the tools of their trade. The little red circle, that's one of the trolley stops on your way. So coming through Sylvan Lake, down through Kego, you run into, there's 9 trolley stops between Pontiac and Farmington Hills. The little red triangle, that's what some of you may remember as Charlie's Crab, the restaurant. But in actuality, it was originally built by George Hodges. It was the Rotunda Inn first. Then it sold to the Muir family, became Charlie's Crab. 1975, it burned down. There are almost no remnants of it today. Even the address doesn't exist today. It's now houses. I've already told you about the big oblong yellow circle. That's Pine Lake Country Club. The little blue star is where my home is. It was a part of the Howard family acres. But on the right, you'll see how this is 1908, 1912. Just a few years later, look at how all the property has been cut up. So we have 8 acres. See the 8 acres, the little yellow box on the right? That was sold to Estella Snell, and she is the person that built our home. So let's keep going. The Girls Friendly Society, I mentioned them earlier. They're down here. They have 100 acres on Pine Lake, and they sell off a big portion of it, but they build their own home, their own basically camp for young girls to take care of them. The little red heart, that's our schoolhouse, Pine Lake number 3. And then you can see the area, and so this is my home, and so I've concentrated. By the way, there's also a hotel on Orchard Lake, but my focus is Pine Lake. That's what I've been trying to research, okay? Now, you're looking down Orchard Lake Road. At Pontiac Trail looking south, look at all the cars. Do you know why they're all stopped here? There's a gas station. There's a gas station right here. As you go forward into between Pine Lake and Orchard Lake, it's a gravel road. They actually collect a toll now. But this is my favorite side story. We have this retired Army Brigadier General. You know where he lives? Orchard Lake and Pontiac Trail. He spent 41 years in the service, and he comes back home, and you know what he says? In 1919, look at these quotes. He goes, "People swarming all over private property in droves, putting on bathing suits on their cars and swimming and picnicking on private lawns." He goes, "What a mess." Can you imagine a military guy with all these people coming up to vacation and he's just beside himself, right? He's upset. As a matter of fact, the principal reason for forming the village of Orchard Lake was to prevent the trespassing and to police the damn roads. That's why Orchard Lake is a village. Because a guy like this he's so upset. By the way, this pretty famous Army Brigadier General, he actually leaves the area and retires in San Diego, California. I mean, he's upset. I mean, he's done, right? So a couple more fun slides. That's just a side story. Here's Charlie's Crab. You may remember this, the Rotunda Inn. Really cool. How many people actually went there, even as a little child? Yes, I love that. That's great. A lot of people here. Here's a story you don't know. Here's the Lost Country Club subdivision. Why is it lost? This, see where the little red circle is? It says that's actually Pine Lake. So this is very near the Pine Lake Country Club today. So what they did is they built a subdivision, and these open areas, see these open areas? That's what they're intending to use the space for more holes for the golf course. You know what happened? They got it all approved. Forgot to ask the landowners if they wanted to sell. None of the landowners wanted to sell. Never happened, by the way. So I love it. It's so formal. It looks so official. It didn't happen. So how are you going to get up to Pine Lake? Get a car, a horse, but it's swampy. It's swampy. That's my favorite theme of all of living in this area. Travel up here is miserable in this era. And look at this next slide. You know where this is? We're at Walnut Lake Road right now. If you go over to Orchard Lake and you look north, that's the view right here. That's your view. So up the hill and on the right-hand side of this photo, that's West Bloomfield High School. That's West Bloomfield. Notice again, the roads are built next to the trolley tracks. Because when it's muddy, the trolley's going to pull you out. And then how many people are walkers and have walked the trail around here? You walk these trails? These are wonderful little snippet boards that we have on the trails. Thanks to the Greater West Bloomfield Historic District, a lot of people there have helped populate the information on these boards, but they're wonderful to read. They're wonderful to read. Look at the original founders of the Pine Lake Country Club. Ooh, Henry Joy, Algiers, Chapin, Ransom Olds. If you like REO Speedwagon, that's him. REO Speedwagon, that's the man. Booth, Henry Ford, James Cousin. Anybody ever heard of James Cousin? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are the founders of the auto industry and basically a lot of what we know about the history of Detroit. They're all members of the Pine Lake Country Club. Yeah, I know there's more too. There's more names that aren't, but anyway, my story, my podium. Okay, so now I'm a little closer to home. This is actually my home that I own today. I'm actually just a caretaker of that home. It was originally Lawrence Schnell's family home. Anybody know anything about Lawrence Schnell? Anybody ever heard that name? Cool. He's a state congressman and senator. This is him in 1934. I'm sorry, it's 1905. He's 34 years old. I know my own slides too well. He is probably most famous for the man behind the Michigan State Fair. That's really one of his he fought for the farmers, for the farming community, and brought the State Fair at 8 Mile and Woodward. He is friends with Henry Ford. He actually has loaned Henry Ford some of his own property because Henry Ford's tinkering. He's made the Model A, but he's not happy with it. And he came out with the Model C, and then the D, and the E, and the F, and the M. And until in 1908, he gets to the T, and he thinks he's perfected his automobile in 1908 with the T model. But prior to that, whether he's in the Palette Avenue plant or whether he's in Highland Park, he's tinkering and trying to figure out a better way to make the vehicle easier to build, more reliable. He is most likely given credit for the assembly line, although honestly, there's probably people that are more responsible for the assembly line. He was certainly the owner of the company that brought mass production. But Lawrence Snell, he's 34 years old in 1905. He has 3 young kids. He owns a dairy and a creamery. I mean, he's the milkman, right? He doesn't own the cattle. He buys the milk, and then he rebottles it, and he distributes it, ice cream too. He finally sells his creamery, and he buys the property in 1912 up here on Pine Lake. He sold his creamery for $100,000. You go, that's not much. Oh, it's over $3 million today, pretty easily. You know, it's a lot of money, and all of a sudden he's pretty wealthy. He still has a real estate business, and he still is in the banking business with Henry Ford called the Highland Park State Bank, which services Ford Motor Company. Yeah, he's in pretty good company, and he's with James Cousins and others. So he puts everything in the house in his wife's name, because that's the way they used to do it in case he got sued. Everything's in the wife's name. And he hires a man by the name of Cooney, William H. Cooney, to design him a country home. So here's his family. I just want to, 2 seconds. My favorite person in this whole thing is the woman on his wife. His name is Estella. Estella lists her job occupation as socialite. She throws parties for the well-to-do. That's what she lists her title as. They have 3 kids. Lawrence Jr. goes on to be a very important member of the Navy, serving in the United Kingdom during World War II. Not a general, but a very important figurehead there. The beautiful woman Gladys in the middle. She ends up marrying a boy who went to Princeton. His name was John Davis. Do you have any historians in here about John Davis? John Davis ran against Calvin Coolidge for the President of the United States. She married his daughter. Estella's doing a good job. And Edward dies tragically over Detroit in an airplane accident. He's enlisted into the Air Force. They're flying over, I think they're doing some barnstorming accidents or stunts. They're doing some stunts over Detroit. One of the wings falls off and he perishes as it crashes. On the right-hand side, if you ever want to see a more dapper couple, this is Lawrence Jr. on the right and his sister Estella, and they're at Greenbrier. So one of the things I didn't tell you is Estella names their home on Pine Lake Greenbrier. She loves Greenbrier. And Greenbrier, I think they're very fashionable. 1927. But in 1926, Larry dies. So he hasn't, the home was actually completed in 1925. They move in. 1 year later, he dies. Estella remarries instantly to a Wall Street. She's a socialite. She remarries instantly, and her husband dies within a year again. So Black Widow, I don't know. So this is about, now here's the architect. Now, William H. Cooney is very popular in Detroit. He's built over 500 homes. If you know anything about Grosse Pointe, Indian Village, Palmer Park, he's got houses in all of those areas. He's a pretty famous guy from an architecture standpoint. Here's our house in one of his ads. So John Marshall taught me this. In the socialite pages of the Birmingham Bloomfield area, they had this magazine called The Afterglow. It's for all the up-and-coming people. You know, they're reading all the what's going on in the city. Well, William H. Cooney is advertising in this. And he happens to be, in this case, advertising our home. He's built it, so we know that the ad is somewhere after 1925. He claims he's built over 500 homes, and he has over 150 people working for him. So building is booming. If you happen to meet him, he would give you this little pamphlet. I got this from the Henry Ford Museum. The pamphlet shows all the different houses that he's built all over the city. And he would hand you a pamphlet, and then he would start talking about, and what's your budget, and what do you want it to look like, and here's all the details. One other kind of funny thing about, well, Cooney's known for his details. He loves arched doors. He loves these high-pitched roofs. Inside the home, there are a lot of domed roofs, domes. He loves plaster, leaded glass. But all the windows of the house, our Libby Owens Ford has finally figured out how to make flat glass floating on tin so it could be cut with no air bubbles in it. This is a 1930 Look magazine ad. Prior to that, most glass, if you really go into Meadowbrook Hall and look at the glass, you'll see bubbles in it. In the Edsel Ford mansion, lots of bubbles in the glass. It's a new technology. Hadn't figured out how to make glass without bubbles until this. Pretty interesting. So Cooney loves details. Look at the plasterwork. Look at the arched doors. He even likes, there's so many squirrels in our yard. I mean, he's got squirrels and everything, right? Pine Lake's got to be the capital of squirrels in like America. He loves fireplaces. He's actually, in this home, there's 9 fireplaces. 9. So let me tell you a little bit about this house, and then this is easier. You don't have to think as much. All the history lessons kind of over. 7,500 square foot house. It has a 2,500 square foot garage with a chauffeur's quarters above, because when you need the Bentley or the Rolls, you're not going to walk back there. The chauffeur will bring it up, and we're good, right? 10 bedrooms, 9 fireplaces, 5 full baths, 5 half baths. It's on 3 acres today. It was originally on 8 acres. They sold the back 5 acres to the Pine Lake Country Club to help them build their golf course. A majority of the lighting in the house is original. Thank God. So when you start to restore a home like this, you're asking yourself, holy cow, this is a labor of love, right? You don't do this for the money. You do this for the passion. And so we thought it'd take us 15 years and a lot of money, and it's been 18 plus years and a lot more money. And but most people want to hear tell me about the roof, right? Tell me about the roof. I want to hear the story of the roof. So here's the story of the roof. When I bought the home, it looked like this. This is the first day of ownership. No, the house is in pretty bad shape. All of the shrubbery is overgrown. The thing's kind of a mess. The roof looks weird. It's all bumpy and stuff. And because my dad's a contractor, I always have a ladder. And I started going up there and I started peeling parts of the roof off, and I realized that this roof is asphalt shingle. And that didn't make any sense. Asphalt shingles, not in 1925, it's not asphalt shingles, right? So I brought this crew out of Florida. Now, if you're going to redo your roof, most roofs can realistically, if you have an asphalt roof and you want to redo it, really good companies, you can do it in a day. You can do it in a day. These guys were up for 7 weeks, working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day to pull this old roof off and put on a new one. So let me just explain what you're seeing. On the far left, see the bare roof? That's actually the structural roof. It's got tar paper over the top. The original cedar roof is down there. And the asphalts were covering up. So I was told that they put the asphalt shingles over the original roof because they had 2 water leaks. And they couldn't find anybody that was willing to just fix the leaks of the cedar roof. I mean, are you kidding? Like, how crazy is that? So notice the original roof is blue. The original roof is blue. Now, everybody says, oh, Paul, but the house is kind of a grayish blue. No, it wasn't. Those are the asphalt shingles that you're remembering. It was actually blue. And so here's a little sample I pulled off the side of the house as they're ripping all of the shingles off the roof. By the way, Here's a job that we don't want to show to OSHA. Anybody OSHA in here? Okay, here we go. Here they are working on it. That's on the guy's at the very top of the peak. And the cedar shake is rounded, it's barreled, it's soaked in water for 3 days, it's in a press, and then they pull it out and they wrap it to the right shape and then they nail it intact. And they have to do that. It's not just one-dimensional like barrels, it's also up and down too. So, my Lord. On the left, you see the house raw of this is only the original structure. On the right is the reconstruction of exactly what the roof looked like when we pulled it off. We took extensive photos of it when we were pulling it off. I actually had a drone. I'm flying the drone up around the guys and taking photos and everything. But every time I put the drone in the air, the guys would stop working. So go back to work. And so here it is being reconstructed. They have to put little boards at certain sections to get into the different areas to rebuild it. Whoops, and boom, there it is when it was done. Now, some of you might think that I'm nuts because the color doesn't look right. Okay. If you look at the paint on the lower landing kind of areas, places where you could actually walk, that paint and the stain on the wood are exactly the same color. I don't know what happened. Let's just say that the blue's a little brighter than, it ended up a little brighter than we wanted it to be. We were trying to get the lighter color. It came out magnificent. Magnificently blue. So when you get done with the roof, then we had to scrape all the old leaded paint off the house, right? And you see a guy down here below with the vacuum cleaner. Yeah, so we had to put plastic all over the place. We're catching all the little chips, and then after we catch all the chips, then with the vacuum cleaner, guys going around all day long sucking up lead paint chips. That's fun. Then I walked in the house, and the front steps on the left were rotted out, and I didn't realize that those front steps are actually over the basement. So if you step on them and they go through, you're 9 feet down. I mean, literally. Not 6 feet under, but 9 feet down instantly. And so we had to tear all this out and recreate it. And I got a guy that did it the right way with concrete. And so you can see the evolution, the limestone steps, the bluestones are all back in place. This is a labor of love. This isn't, this is pretty wild stuff. Then, of course, the pergola is all rotted out too, so we're replacing all of the beautiful wood pergola. And it keeps going. And we finally get the outside done in 2018. The outside's done, right? Now we got to go inside. So somebody once asked me, like, what's this home really all about? And I think back to Estella Snell, and I said, this home is set up for high society socializing. And why do I say that? It's a summer country home on this beautiful lake. It's set up that there are 4 master suites on the second floor. So you can bring your friends up from Detroit. They can stay with you for a week or a month. In each suite, there's not just a bedroom, there's a bathroom, there's a fireplace, there's a sleeping porch, there's ample storage for all of your, everything you need, and massive linen closets on the second floor. You can stay forever. The doors, by the way, also lock from the inside and from the outside. So, if you want to go out on the lake and you don't want anybody to see in your room, you can lock the door. And so it's got this resort feel to it. It's also got a staff. The third floor is all prepared for the helpers, the wait staff, the cook, the cleaning folks. So the third floor is all set up for them. And the funny thing is, there's 2 ways in the house. If you're an invited guest or you own the house, you can go all the way through the house using wide formal staircases. If you're staff, there's a back entrance where you never see a person like the homeowner in the home. And they can go from the basement to the third floor, and you'll never see them. There's a lot of doors in this house. But it's really an interesting architectural design. So now just fun stuff. Let's go inside. When you get inside the doors, you'll notice these beautiful leaded glass doors. And there are leaded glass doors on every thing that you run into on the first floor. Here's a little bigger view of the inside of the house. There's the front entrance. This one over here is the back entrance or exit. So if you need to go to the Bentley to be chauffeured, you go out the back door this way. The front door, if you're dropped off that way. Cooney uses incredible architectural details. Some of these details are, he uses wallpaper inside this wooded molding area. It's called picture framing. Inside the picture frame is wallpaper. Outside of it is an accent color, and then there's a third color to highlight the whole room. It's an architectural, it's beautiful. And so here's the main living room. That ceiling is not reworked, it's original. It's original with that crazy plaster work and that diamond medallion. And look at all the arched doors. I mean, Cooney loves arched doorways. The fireplace is actually sandstone with a limestone surround. We have a hard time cleaning this. So I'm going to do some funny games with you now. So the house is built in 1925. We have photos of the entire house from 1925. Ready? I'm going to try to give you the exact same camera locations all the way through the house. So this is the main living area today, 1925. Same room. See the medallion in the ceiling? Medallion in the ceiling. See the crazy plasterwork? Yeah. This is the best seat in the house. It's the front porch. I love front porches on homes, looking over the lake with the haint blue ceiling to keep out the evil spirits if you're from the South. Anybody from the South in here? No, this is a big thing in the South. You paint your under ceilings light blue. Next to the entertaining room is this card room. This card room looked like this in 1925. By the way, I tried to buy that table. I tried to find it and buy it, Smithsonian. They have it. So, and see that light fixture? When I bought the house, it didn't exist. And so people that actually know me know I'm going to find it, right? So here's the story of the light. It's a Handel light. It's hand blown, painted on the inside with a crackle finish on the outside, and they put it back into the kiln. And when they put it back into the kiln, it cracks the exterior surface. They call it a crackle finish. Then he signs it, numbers it, and puts it back together. It took me 6 years from that first picture, this one. So that doesn't look like a yellow parrot lamp. It took me 6 years to find this. I found it. It was in Iowa at a Handel art glass collector's. He had it in his possession. And he said, Paul, funny thing happened. I just got this out of Michigan. I may have bought my original lamp back. I don't know. Crazy story. This is the formal dining room. All of these, again, look at the arched doorways, but all of the lighting in this room is original. This is actually silver plate E.F. Kaufman design. If you know anything about it, it's silver and crystal chandeliers and silver even on the side. It's really, really beautiful. We had to rewire everything, but other than that, it's really beautiful. Here it is today, the same dining room, 1925. Same angles, same view. Obviously, our furniture is not nearly as good as the Snell's furniture. This is actually a prettier view. I don't know why insurance people take the ugliest views of the room. This is a prettier. You see there's the beautiful fireplace behind the master. But the detail work that Cooney brings to the house, he loves arched doorways. He loves dome ceilings. He loves this whole concept of wallpaper and different tonal qualities and plaster. Oops, sorry. Next to this room is a morning breakfast room. Notice the dome ceiling. We've seen arch doors with 1 piece, 2 piece. Now here's a 3-piece arch. The center door on this actually opens. You can let the breeze in. It opens wide open. So this is where you can have your morning coffee.
Is that Civic?
Oh, great question. No. This entire house is filled with tile. Tile's very popular in 1920. There are about 200 tile companies in America. This is General Motors tile. It's called Flint faience. And I said the word right, Flint faience. So General Motors is getting into the automotive business. They need spark plugs. Around a spark plug is a little ceramic insulator. They put up a plant in Flint. In that plant in Flint, in the early 1900s, they're not making any volume. They have this huge facility. So they decide, hey, I guess we're going to make tile. So they make tile. And the reason I know it's Flint faience is the pattern on the floor is very specific to Flint faience. It's a very weird geometric pattern. I have the whole book on it, by the way. And some people think it's Puabic. It kind of looks like Puabic, but it's not. It's not. But thank you. This is probably a breakfast room because next to this is actually the butler's pantry, which would serve the formal dining room and the breakfast room. So for the butler, he's got the china, the crystal, the stemware. He gets past the food through the food passage door from the kitchen. His job, or her lady of the house, her job, is to plate the food onto the crystal, china, and silver. See, there's a caste system, even in the staffs, that who can interact with the family members and the guests. There are rules. So after they plate the food, serve the food out of these cabinets or where everything is, then they have to wash them in the butler's sink, and then they put them back in the storage areas where they came from. But it's strictly, only certain people can touch this stuff. It's expensive back in this era. Now, before you boo me, I'm going to show you the kitchen. So you go, that's not a 1900s kitchen, all right? Okay, it's not. I admit it. So there's almost nothing about 1925 in this kitchen, except, I'll show you a different viewpoint. Watch this. I don't know a woman. By the way, if you're a woman and you would accept this next slide as your kitchen, I'd like to see you raise your hand. Okay, ready? So we redid the kitchen, but here's what it looked like before. Ready? Yeah, there it is. Got it. Behind me on the right is a big stove and a cutting area. These are dual-sided refrigerators, so once you prepare your meal, you can put your food in the refrigerators, and then, the butler pulls it out from the other side, right? So the butler's pantry can retrieve all the food. And by the way, this is kind of one little fun little knick-knack. Anybody know what this is technically called? Not the technical name, but yes, that's right. It's called an annunciator. They're mostly found on ships and hotels. And what do? So in every room in the house, there's a little button, a call button. So you're going to call your butler or maid. You need help getting in, and you need to get in your dress and can't get in, right? You need help. Push the button, and the switch on the panel goes sideways, and the little bell rings. Dee-da-ling-ling. So someone who's in the kitchen is there and ready to move people forward. Oh,
I see that air conditioning unit up on the ceiling.
yeah, in every room in the house, there's now a supplemental heating and air conditioning in every room in the house. The house did not have air conditioning when we bought it. It does now. And so here's this caste system again. I've shown you the formal entrance and the formal exit on the first floor. This is the back entrance. And there's the back stairway. Totally different than what you see for the guests and the family members. This is what you get in the back. Right? Now the wait staff can go from the basement to the third floor. The people that live in the house, they can't get to the third floor. That's not their floor. So they're not allowed in there. We'll go a little faster for some fun slides. Almost running out of time. This is the library. There's the library in 1925. Again, the furniture they had was incredible. This is a better view of the same library, looking at the fireplace. This is my Monet at Giverny lavatory. Why do I say that? Every room in this house is filled with General Motors tile. The tile dominates the coloration of the room, unless you want to retile the whole house. So this room was green. We turned it into Monet. Every lavatory in the entire house is a pedestal sink. And all of the plumbing fixtures, for any guys into plumbing, they're all Sloan valves. Sloan valves are what you typically find at the airport. The high velocity, you're shooting 6,000 gallons of water to clean out a toilet. Okay, let's go upstairs real fast. Here's the formal way upstairs. When you get to the top, original draperies, we had them redone from photos. Original lighting. Here it is today from the correct vantage point. Here it is in 1925. So we have lovingly restored this home really back to where it was in 1925. Not trying to take, other than the kitchen, not trying to take too many liberties of what the house was. This is the master bedroom. By the way, that's a king bed. Notice pink tile dictates the color of the room. So you get a pink room. Master bath. Fireplace details incredible throughout the house. And there are 9 fireplaces. You got a lot of opportunity to do what you want to do here. My favorite quality, if you're the lady of the home, you'll say, "What's that door doing on my bedroom?" Oh, that's where the lady of the house gets dressed. And oh, by the way, she has her own bathroom. Her own bathroom. See it in that doorway? She has her own toilet and makeup area, and in addition to where she puts all of her clothes. So that's where she can dress. This is a second of the master bedrooms. Again, now gray colored tile. Now we get gray color, grayish colors on the walls. And the tile's dictating the color flow through the house. All original lighting in here. It's from exactly the opposite angle. Anybody have one of these showers in their house? 270-degree shower. You walk in, you can turn on one valve, you get water from the top. If you turn the other valve, you get it 270 degrees around you. They also have this in Meadowbrook. But they work fine. I mean, you can drown. And by the way, there's a toilet over here on the right and some other things. All the rooms also have sleeping porches. In the 1925s, it's hot. So you open up all the windows and doors. You'll notice that this, on the very far left, that window is actually open. But now that the house has air conditioning, you don't really need it. But they're wonderful places just to, if you want to read a book in private, and they're wonderful little areas today. This is the third master. This is actually my little daughter's room. So pretty, a little smaller than the other ones. And their own bathroom. By the way, back to the color of the tile. See the tile on the fireplace? Kind of a creamy yellow color, so you get a yellow bathroom to go with it. So we were trying to reduce the yellow and bring in some mauve and make it look a little prettier.
Do all the bedrooms have their own bathroom?
Everyone, yes.
So there's how many bedrooms?
There's 4 master suites, but there's 10 total rooms in the house.
And there's a total of 5 bathrooms in the house?
10 bathrooms in the house, yeah. When you gotta go, you gotta go. This is the fourth of the masters. This is my oldest daughter's room. She likes Tiffany blue. If you've ever been to Greenbrier, you'll notice Dorothy Draper styling all through Greenbrier. This is a copy of Dorothy Draper style of Greenbrier. So Estella loved Greenbrier so much, we threw this wild wallpaper imagery back to Dorothy. But that's her style. And in this room, you have a cute little sitting area. You can have a lot of fun with this and read a book. My daughter's a musician, so she plays her music in here. And then there's another bathroom with a shower on the left, toilet, sink, all pedestals throughout the whole house. On the third floor are really where the staff live. So you have these, the rooms are every bit as large as the second floor. They're huge. This is also a king bed up on the right. And the left, we put bunk beds up there for grandkids. But they're quite large rooms and multiple bathrooms up there as well. Oh, and downstairs we have a ballroom. They tell you we had a ballroom? So terrazzo floors in the ballroom. And this big, wide, open area. And I'll show you how large it is on the next slide, because that's a 5x10 pool table sideways. So you need, it's 25 foot, width of the room. I play pool, so this is my 1916 Brunswick, and the kids, watch and entertain down here.
You guys stay with the house when you sell it?
No. No. And I tell you, I had a locomotive. In 1925, how do you think you get steam heat through a house? By the way, I also have a coal chute. You back the truck up, you dump the coal you fire into the furnaces. There's one furnace on the ground, it's really hard to see. Heats up this humongous water tank. When I bought the home, it was still connected to the house. It's not connected anymore. But it's also not going anywhere, because I can't get it out. I mean, you can't get it out of the house. There's just no way. So the backyard, this is facing north towards Pine Lake Country Club. We're actually on the third hole. If you know Pine Lake Country Club, we're on the third hole. And 1925. Yes, there is a tennis court back there. It happens to be a grass tennis court. So to maintain a grass tennis court by today's standards, there's no way I'm going to maintain. I'm sorry. I have my limit. I'm not maintaining the grass tennis court. All the structure's still there. It's still there, but it's not grass anymore. And I mentioned that we have the garage. Well, here's the garage. And I'll make it a little easier for people that aren't car people. It kind of looks like this. With all of I'm a car guy, so you get car junk all over the walls, but yeah, it's all epoxied and pretty. And of course, if you hate cars but you like the lake, then here's the lake. So this is we have a little boathouse. The boathouse on the lower level houses the dock in the wintertime. And upstairs, we have a nice table. You can bring out food and drink and look over the whole lake. It's a very, very pleasant place to live, and in the dock. So in summary, this is the very first picture we have of home. This is winter of 24, spring of 1925. That's what the house looked like when it was done, thanks to Manning Brothers Photography. Anybody know about Manning Brothers? They used to do all of the old photos of Detroit. It's a professional photography group. They have a wealth of wonderful photos. They actually photoed our entire house for insurance purposes. And so this is when the Snells owned it. They owned it from 1925 to 1940. Gladys, the young girl, was the final person that lived there. They sold the home to the Craigs. The Craigs lived here from, the Craigs and Mary Craig got married many times, and so I still call her by her first marriage was Craig. And her daughter was married, and their last name was Boyles. So they lived there till 1984. Dean Buchanan, Dean and Feather, lived there. He's a lawyer here in town from '84 until '05, and they sold it to us. So we're the fourth owners in 100 years. Fourth owner. And so this is kind of what it looked like when we bought it, and this is what it looks like today. Yeah. And we have a lot of pictures that people that stop by and just draw the house. So I hope you found something in all that you enjoyed, but I'm kind of done.